From Robert Pattinson absolutely hating Twilight to iCarly being the low point of Jennette McCurdy's career, let's take a look at actors who are embarrassed of their own movies and shows. Starting off with Robert Pattinson, who hates his biggest success. I'm not talking about the Batman, don't worry. Our Pats definitely had a meteoric rise at the beginning of his career. First with a beloved one-off as Cedric Diggory in Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire, but even he couldn't have anticipated what was coming next when he signed onto the Twilight movies, playing none other than its heartthrob lead, Edward Cullen. The Twilight movies took the world by storm, and the internet became a battleground for the armies of Team Edward and Team Jacob. Pattinson, though, was not happy at all about them. Doing promo for the series, he always talked about his disdain for the movies and their source material. He said that author Stephenie Meyer was definitely writing a self-insert fantasy, and not in such nice terms either. When the last movie was coming out, he also agreed with Jimmy Fallon that the end of the series was sad for them, and he's always maintained that his favorite movie of the series is New Dawn, the one that happens to feature the least of Edward Cullen. For what it's worth though, he has defended the Twilight fanbase, saying that it's no longer cool to be a hater of this franchise. Up next is someone who definitely hasn't softened up on the movie she despises. Sandra Bullock wishes that she hadn't come back for the Speed sequel. Speed has become one of the most beloved action movies of the 90s, and it was an early success in the career of the breathtaking Keanu Reeves. I don't think anyone questioned Sandra Bullock's decision to reprise her role in the second Speed movie, but in hindsight, it's one of the big regrets of her career. Echoing the plot of the first movie, Speed 2 Cruise Control finds its characters on a Caribbean cruise gone out of control. The ship is locked into a collision course with an oil tanker, and it's up to Bullock's Annie and Jason Patric's Officer Alex to stop it. I'm sure you've already picked up on the big weakness of the movie. While the first one had a propulsive idea of a bus that has to keep going for everyone's sake, the sequel has a ship slowly sailing towards an island. This is the aspect of the movie that Bullock has been criticizing for years, with her summing up the movie as slow boat slowly going towards an island. Funnily enough, Keanu Reeves recently revealed that he turned down Cruise Control for precisely the same reason, but I guess Bullock didn't have the same foresight. Now, the stories we've looked at so far have been kind of funny. Less funny was Shailene Woodley's experience on The Secret Life of the American Teenager. Shailene has been acting for a lot longer than some of you might realize, but it was The Secret Life of the American Teenager that put her on the map. Unfortunately, the actress has come away with a really negative perception of the show, and there are a number of reasons why. She first appeared on the show in 2008, playing the 15-year-old Amy Juergens. At the time, she was excited enough about her prospects to sign 6 years of her life to ABC. Naturally, she began to get tired of the show over the years, but there was something she hated even more about it. If you don't know what Secret Life is about, the first season sees Amy deal with being pregnant at 15 years old. While Shailene had assumed that the show would actually explore the difficulties of life as a teen mom, something that the actress could relate to because of her friends who went through the same thing, the show took a more conservative approach to teen pregnancy. Amy's character was contrasted with the abstinent until marriage Grace, who was consistently portrayed as doing better in life. Shailene and her fellow cast members disagreed with the message, and in hindsight, they regret their involvement in having pushed it. But when it comes to teen stars, Shailene's life could have gone down a much worse path, because any of Jennette McCurdy's Nickelodeon shows could fit in here. But let's go with iCarly. For a lot of young Nick watchers, Jennette McCurdy's Sam Puckett may be their favorite childhood character. But with the release of her memoir, amazingly titled, "I'm Glad My Mom Died," McCurdy has been talking about how she definitely doesn't feel the same way about her acting career. It's at a point where the actress is sitting out a reboot of iCarly, the show that she's probably most famous for. Unlike the other projects on this list, iCarly wasn't embarrassing by itself for McCurdy. Rather, she regrets that show because of everything in her life that's caught up in it. She writes in her memoir about the show's creator, a handsy creep, and she's talked about how this wasn't what she wanted out of her acting career. In fact, she barely wanted an acting career at all, and iCarly was the culmination of someone else's dream, that someone else being her mom. It didn't help that she was on iCarly and continued to play the Sam Puckett character from age 13 to age 21. At this point, McCurdy is dipping her toes back into acting, taking on more serious roles, and she's clearly not interested in taking a single glance back at Nickelodeon. The only thing that she doesn't regret about iCarly is Miranda Cosgrove, a close friend of hers to this day. But let's lighten the mood a bit. Zac Efron can probably relate to Robert Pattinson's hatred of his heartthrob character. For a certain generation of teen girls, High School Musical was basically their Twilight. Troy Bolton and Gabriela Montez were their Edward and Bella, though neither of them glittered in the sun. And just like Edward, Troy also regrets being part of this series. In an interview with Men's Fitness, Zac revealed that he wishes he could travel back in time, and the thing he'd like to do is tell his teenage self not to take on High School Musical. Zac doesn't have very nice things to say about his teenage self, actually. He says that he wants to beat himself up, and he doesn't like him all that much. While teen Zac might have done something that was funny, he was basically still defined by HSM. What it came down to was that HSM wasn't what Zac wanted out of his acting career, though he only realized this after completing the shoot of the first movie. Unfortunately for him, the HSM train had left the station, and it was packed. He did gamely stick around for both of the sequels, wrapping up the story of Troy and Bella in High School Musical 3 senior year. I guess the contrast between Zac Efron and Robert Pattinson is that while Zac just felt that he was in the wrong place personally, Pattinson loathed the actual movies and the books they were adapted from. One more before I sign off today, and I can bet you won't see this coming. The late great Alec Guinness would like you to never watch Star Wars again. That's right, when it comes to Obi-Wan Kenobi approving his debut movie, there's no hope to be found. Alec Guinness wasn't a fan of Episode 4 A New Hope, going as far as to sign one fan's autograph on the condition that the fan never watches the movie again. There were two reasons why Guinness hated working on this movie, and the first was something everyone hated about it. By the time Alec was doing Star Wars, he was already a stone-cold legend in acting, and he was just embarrassed of the script he was working with. George Lucas was famously not very good at writing dialogue, and he clearly didn't rise to Guinness's lofty standard. In fact, he could barely clear the standards of the younger actors. But the other reason was that he felt annoyed by the reverence he was given by his castmates. Carrie Fisher once told the story of how Alec gave Mark Hamill 20 pounds to just go away, because the actor was sort of buzzing around him and asking too many questions. All things considered, everyone loved working with Alec, though the feeling doesn't seem to have been reciprocated. Those are all the stories of actors embarrassed by their own movies for today.